Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Weekly Movie News Podcast. This week's news brought to you by a box office sigh of relief. Yes, well, the biggest news of the week appears to be the domestic success of Superman, but we'll get into that later on in the box office block. For now, let's just get into some more normal movie news for the week. So Sean Baker, director of Academy Award-winning film Anora last year, has given a hint for his next project. A couple of months ago, we covered that Baker was on the move. He and his wife, Samantha Kwan, who's a producer, they had already finished scouting locations, and the filming for the project is supposed to start this fall. Sean now has at least given a nugget of what to expect, and it sounds like he's going a more humorous route. So Baker said in a recent interview, quote, "My new thing is just leaning a little bit more into comedy. For a long time, I've made films that I would consider to be dramas or tragedies with comedic elements, and I kind of want to push that into comedy with dramatic and tragic elements. That might be my change," end quote. He also mentioned he feels the pressure after Anora, and the nerves are there of how to match or exceed the praise that Anora got. So it's no surprise that Baker might step out a bit more than usual and try to capture a different tone than what we're used to seeing with him. In a couple of months, we should get some more clarification, so we look forward to seeing just how funny Sean is willing to go. In other director news, Guy Ritchie has backed out of Roadhouse 2 over at Amazon. No one knows why or what exactly has happened. There's speculation that Ritchie just has too many projects up in the air and can't keep up the workload. The first Roadhouse film, although critically panned, did garner a bunch of viewers over at Amazon, so the company says that Roadhouse 2 is among the biggest priorities for the studio. So scrambling is happening now to find a new director to fill in the slot and stay on schedule. It is heavily rumored that Dave Bautista is set to join the cast, which we mentioned on a previous episode, and Jake Gyllenhaal, of course, is locked in, so we'll see who can sweep in to make the movie. Honestly, maybe with the last-minute shakeup, we get a better movie, so we'll see, especially compared to the first one. It looks like Night at the Museum is getting a reboot. Yes, Sean Levy, director of the original 3 films, and now his studio, 21 Laps, will be working alongside 20th Century Studios to make a new batch of films. It is reported on being a fresh reboot with all new characters, so we'll see how that develops. It looks like Rian Johnson wants out over at Netflix. Johnson, known for his Knives Out films and a Star Wars The Last Jedi, looks to be finished with the business model over at Netflix. The third Knives Out film is coming out later this year, and Netflix is standing its ground on not releasing the movie in theaters. Both Rian Johnson and Daniel Craig made their thoughts well known when the second film in the trilogy was coming out, Glass Onion. Craig and Johnson very much wanted that film to come out in theaters, and in retrospect, they were probably right. There's estimates out there that that film could have made $600 million worldwide at the box office. But Netflix stood its ground, and even still with the new film, Wake Up Dead Man, the studio isn't budging at all. News now has come out that Johnson has his next film idea set and will be shopping around to major studios, certainly not at Netflix. Johnson says that his next picture will be a standalone sci-fi film, and it's an idea that he's had since after coming out with Looper in 2012. Universal has locked down the copyright of Donkey Kong, along with Nintendo in a joint filing. With this deal inked, Universal will continue to try to capitalize off of movie renditions of classic Nintendo properties. Mario Bros. Was a huge success 2 years ago, and a lot of weight is being put on the Legend of Zelda movie, which is set for 2027. Donkey Kong will add to that catalog now, but since it will most certainly be an animated film, just like Mario Brothers and Zelda, it will be years in the making. So if Zelda isn't coming out for 2027, Donkey Kong could easily be 29 or even 2030. So we'll definitely wait a while for more news on that. And then the only other thing I have here is Brendan Fraser. Yes, everybody's lovable neighborhood Brendan Fraser. He might be in line for some more award buzz with his latest movie coming out, Rental Family. This is a smaller film that was originally set to come out next year, but now with some very positive test screenings, Searchlight Pictures has bumped up the release, and the film is coming out in late November, a prime slot. The buzz is that the film is a tender, funny, emotional story reminiscent of The Holdovers and Little Miss Sunshine, so that just sounds super promising. Brendan Fraser is said to be very good in the film, and it's also directed by a Japanese director simply named Hikari. So Hikari is known for directing a few episodes of the acclaimed show Beef over on Netflix, and also a couple of episodes directed of a show Tokyo Vice, which is also very well received. She has made a feature film before called 37 Seconds, but this new picture, Rental Family, certainly has the potential to jumpstart a major career for Hikari. Let's jump or fly on over to the box office for this past weekend. So the fifth best movie over at the box office was Elio, with $3.9 million. Fourth was How to Train Your Dragon, with $7.8. Third for the weekend was F1 the Movie, raking in $13 million still. Second was Jurassic World Rebirth, with a still pretty decent $40 million, I have to say. For its second weekend, considering what number one did at the box office, Dino still roared pretty big at the box office. Jurassic, by the way, has a worldwide total so far of $530 million. But the number one film at the box office this past weekend was James Gunn's Superman. Finally, a hit at DC Studios, and man, oh man, a sigh of relief heard across this great country of ours, with the Man of Steel himself raking in $122 million. Very, very good for Superman 2025. Now, the funny thing, though, and not necessarily horrible news, but I did want to note, when it comes to superheroes, Superman really is on its own island of importance, it seems. Even for many decades, the character is like a uniquely American property. I'd say even more than Captain America himself. Superman just pulls more weight for whatever reason. And I say this just because it also shows in the box office. It only grossed $95 million internationally. Now, not terrible, but for big American blockbuster films in kind of this current era of the box office, it's pretty usual for the international market to pull in anywhere between 55 and 65% of the total gross for a film. So, for instance, Jurassic World's international gross is at 56% of the total take. F1, it's 65% internationally. Mission Impossible is 67%. How to Train Your Dragon at 57%. So, all of this to say, Superman 2025, no doubt it is a hit with $122 million for the opening weekend in the States. But it needs to continue to perform well here because an international contribution of just 43% will make it tougher to hit $700 million globally, which is what's being reported the film has to earn just to start making a profit. Anyway, that's in the weeds a little bit, but I think it's kind of interesting. I won't rain on Clark Kent's parade anymore because coming up this Thursday, Vincent Daly will be watching, rating, and reviewing. It is indeed all about Superman. So we're jumping back to 1978 with Superman, starring Christopher Reeves, and that's directed by Richard Donner. We then have Superman 2 and Superman 3, directed by Richard Lester. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, still with Chris Reeves, and that's directed by Sidney J. Furie. And then for the theater watch, you guessed it, Superman, directed by James Gunn. Oh, yes. And technically, we do have a sixth film here that Vin wants to cover on the episode. It came out in 2006. It's known as Superman 2, the Richard Donner Cut. So the film takes place after the events of Superman 1978. Richard Donner filmed most of the second film before being fired from the project. And then Warner Brothers released a whole other version known as the Donner Cut in 2006. So we really are covering all aspects of Christopher Reeves as his time as the Man of Steel. Very, very excited. A big episode coming up this Thursday. But that's it for your weekly movie news, folks. We'll leave you today with a quote from a director, Rian Johnson. I'm just randomly wandering around Walt Disney Studios making pew-pew sounds, trying to direct people, and nobody listens to me anymore. I'm turning into a Force ghost. It's a strange feeling. And all right, folks, the Daily Ratings weekly movie news podcast. That was it. See you on Thursday.